Welcome to Overwatch 2 Stories. Just kidding, we're still playing the original. Anyway, on our last episode, we have pursued the most noble of aspirations a man can dream of, proving that somebody else was wrong. With our ego now fully intact, we are ready to jump into our next adventure. After having watched the last two stories, some of you guys might be wondering, Cliff, why are you such a douchebag? While I won't be claiming that I'm not a douchebag, because that will be a bold-faced lie, I do have to highlight that teabagging is not actually part of my douchebag routine. Because you see, if I was interested in actually ruining someone else's fun, then I wouldn't try to do that by teabagging them. I would simply play Doomfist, which I do that as well. So that still leaves the question of why? And the answer to that is fairly simple. I'm a support player. And that's it. You know how they say, you either die as Zenyatta main or live long enough to see yourself play Sombra. And you see, support mains have a lot of pent-up aggression. You can watch your teammates int only so often before something in your brain snaps, and the mere call of "I need healing" makes you wish that friendly fire was an option. So in today's video, I want to take you on a bit of a journey. I want to show you why your fluffy best friends, the supports, indulge in the guilty pleasure that is playing DPS. But not just any DPS, but specifically those characters that were designed to make you want to uninstall the game. Our story begins on Blizzard World. Being the committed support player that I am, I decide to start off today's SM session by playing Moira, because she's like the only viable healer next to Lucio right now. The beginning of the match had immediately reinforced my decision as the right one. The enemies came out swinging with a mercy pocketed Doomfist, and I knew that Moira would be the only character that can conceivably survive on her own. Spamming heals on my frontlining Sigma while trying to back the heck out of there, I barely managed to escape Doomfist's attempted assassination. Seeing that my fellow support player was in critical condition, naturally I tried to heal them as quickly as possible. Notice how, unlike Nathan, I'm actually utilizing Moira's healing capabilities. My action was immediately rewarded with a blue beam, and I knew that it was go time. While some people would say that following a Doomfist into an enclosed space is not a good idea, I would argue that those people are yet to realize just how broken Moira actually is. And this Sombra was also one such player. But it doesn't take a college education, which I don't have, to realize that killing a Doomfist on my own was gonna be more difficult of a task while his pocket healer was still alive. And with both of my DPS players down, I knew I was the one who had to stop this madness. So I yeeted towards the enemy mercy just to find myself greeted by a barrier. And so begins the shield dance between Orisa and me, in which I skillfully dodged the majority of her bullets with the grace of a butterfly. But considering just how many bullets Orisa has at her disposal, I knew that this dance cannot go on forever. I could almost taste the sweet scent of freedom when suddenly I felt something pull at my leg. My desperate attempts of survival have proven futile in the face of a character that might be quite literally the Moira of the tank category, and seeing the enemy Sombra return from her spawn certainly did not help my case. Now, I could lead you through this entire match and tell the epic tale of how I dodged an EMP, eventually teabagged the Doomfist, and skillfully obtained gold eliminations and silver healing. But ultimately, the difference in matchmaking skill was simply too big. But that's okay, because this round of Overwatch taught me a very important lesson. You know, that whole thing about dying a support main or living long enough to become a DPS degenerate. And the adjustment in my mentality was immediately rewarded via means of allowing me to play on the best map in the entire game. Except that one of our tanks immediately left the lobby before we even selected our characters. You see, when it comes to King's Row, there are two types of players. Those that say it's their favorite map, and those that are wrong. Now, King's Row always puts you in a bit of a difficult position, where usually only a handful of heroes are truly viable on each respective map. This one actually allows you to choose from the entire roster. While my initial choice did fall on Genji, seeing the Illidan BlizzCon skin reminded me that I wasted 40 bucks on a digital ticket that I barely got any use out of. And this skin would forever taunt me by reminding me just how much of a failure this monetary investment was. I don't even like this skin! You know what isn't a poor monetary investment? Subscribing to my channel, because it's free. Yep, it's free. And you should do it. Now, I did eventually settle for Widowmaker in light of the fact that I was trying to play the fun police today, but my duo partner asked me to do that Reddit thing in which I boost him up to the top platform by putting a Maywall beneath him. Yes, I was a little embarrassed when I missed the slingshot on my grappling hook, however, immediately felt much better about myself when Birdie's grand strategy caused this inevitable demise. At least now I knew that the enemies also had a Widowmaker. Now, before you judge me on my aim in the following clip, it is worth highlighting that Birdie and I just got out of a 2-day session in which we played Ark Survival Evolved, a game in which the approximate sensitivity amounted to roughly 7.5 billion. and you could not change it. By comparison, playing Overwatch felt like I was dragging my mouse through a pile of mud, and as such, an adjustment period was in order. The first couple shots I took have proven to be completely inconsequential. I let Doomfist live when really I had no right to miss that shot, and eventually found myself in a 1v1 with the enemy Widow. Feeling out the opposing sniper is actually a fairly interesting process because it dictates just how flashy your plays are gonna be throughout the game. Seeing as how he took out Birdie no less than 5 seconds into the match, it took only a couple more shots in trade for me to realize that Hooded was not an incompetent player. I successfully acquired my target. Submitting to the fact that I would not be winning a head-on sniper battle against him while his 2 tanks were spamming barriers in my face, I ended up looking for a more favorable angle. The Venom Mine would ensure to add some extra damage in case of a Doomfist dive, and I felt confident enough to peek out the window. Trust me when I say that I was growing very annoyed of the double barrier meta as well, and all I could muster to achieve were a couple body shots before Hooded got out of my sight. If nothing else, I had managed to secure this angle and made him think twice before peeking me. But when I heard Doomfist yeet into my team, I felt responsible for missing a shot on him earlier and tried to rectify that mistake by hunting him down. And rectify that mistake I did, with a partially charged headshot being enough for my team to finally take him out of the fight. Since Hooded was licking his wounds and Mila was sent back to spawn, our team decided to waltz in on the objective and I was looking for a cheeky angle to catch them off guard. At this point, I was still respecting the opposing Widowmaker enough to not go for any bold plays, but I knew that I eventually had to make a stance for myself as being the alpha sniper. While staring down this corridor did not net me any more eliminations, it did eventually allow me to see where Hooded was headed. Anticipating the high ground peak, I saw him desperately trying to clutch the objective back into their possession, but ultimately he would fall prey to my superior positioning and I finally got to mark my territory. What followed were 55 agonizing seconds in which I desperately tried to find anything, an opening, an opportunity to find somebody who was out of position, heck, even just somebody willing to donate an elimination to me. But the double barrier composition that my enemies chose made that very difficult. By the time I caught up with the rest of my team, my lack of participation has proven to contribute to us losing the team fight, and it was only by grace of my supports that I managed to get away with my life. What followed was a dance with death in which my Sigma kept using and retracting his shield so that I never knew if I was actually in a safe enough position to try and take on the enemy Widowmaker. Bro, can you just please, I need a shield! While another partially charged headshot onto Hooded made sure he didn't peek me again, I noticed that any of my attempts of trying to find an opening without also going on a massive flank would be futile. I surrendered to the idea that Widowmaker was an absolutely useless hero in my hands and I would return to spawn so that I could switch to Doomfist. But my fellow DPS player unfortunately disagreed. I was now left to make a tough choice. Any other DPS character that could potentially be viable against the enemy composition would either take a lot of effort and skill to make work, or it would be Mei. Playing a hero that actually requires mechanical skill was absolutely out of the question. I mean, I'm a support player after all. And how the heck was I supposed to BM Hooded when playing Mei? As such, I opted for what was ultimately not a great choice for my team, but at the same time would allow me to safely try and annoy the ever-living bejeebus out of Hooded. So don't worry, my friends, because I have not yet given up on my occupation as the fun police, and Hooded would not get away with having me switch off of Widowmaker only because his team was playing a superior composition. This flank was solely dedicated to annoying the heck out of him while taking his attention away from the front lines. And it worked surprisingly well. Both of his healers were committed to saving him, giving my team an opening to move back out of spawn. While they were preparing for a full-on assault, I had to tend to my wounds and grab a health pack. But it did not take long for me to find my next victim. Thankfully, Jeff knew that he can't expect DPS players to have something as trivial as game sense or awareness, and as such, he allowed me to see that the enemy Ana was on low HP, together with her exact location. Now, you might be calling my attempted assassination useless here, but really, I was taking advantage of the fact that the enemy team actually played together. For some reason, they kept turning around to help each other whenever I dove into their backline, and as such, it took all their attention away from the rest of my team. This allowed us to regain control of the cart, and we were finally back in business. I felt reinforced in my flanking strategies, actually significantly contributing to our team's success, so you can imagine that I simply kept doing it. Managing to get a hack off on the nano boost at McCree, I definitely showed him and his 2 abilities. The enemy team, again, fully committed to trying to force me to use my translocator, but I had nothing to worry about. Sure, I was no longer contributing damage and distraction in their front lines, but we still had Pertinent and Doomfist, and I felt confident in him being able to keep up the oh, never mind. But he did manage to buy me just enough time to return from the safety of my health pack. And upon my return, more distraction was in order. My prime directive was to simply charge up my EMP while the enemies continued to waste their ultimates. My switch to Sombra had turned turned this battle from being pushed back into a spawn into a stalemate, in which neither of the parties really managed to secure a lot of eliminations. But I was determined to change that. Okay, now listen here, I know that winning the match is certainly the goal of the game, but you know as well as me that I had chosen my rival at the very beginning of the match. The true victory in my mind was not allowing Hooded to snipe away in peace. While Pertinent did not make for a great DPS player this round in the same way that a butter knife does not lend itself to cutting steak, I respected his commitment to try and ruin Hooded's fun in the same way that I was trying to. And just like my butter knife example, the result might not be pretty, but it was certainly edible, which means we finally managed to take out the opposing Widowmaker. Immediately following it up with a big EMP to try and snowball into his second point cap, the overwhelming incoming damage forced me to use my translocator. But this time I had placed it much closer to the front line. It allowed me to return quickly and catch their Ana off guard, who was backing off into the alleyway. With no main healer keeping them alive, the enemy team began to desperately use all of their ultimates to somehow try and hold onto the objective. While I do question what the heck Mila was trying to achieve, they don't call his ultimate Q to respawn for nothing, and as such there was one less problem to worry about. Now you can say what you want about Overwatch, but teamfights like these are really what the game is all about. We were trading eliminations back and forth, investing ultimates of our own to try and finally seal the deal. But eventually we lost the war of attrition when both Ana and Widowmaker returned to the battle. Thankfully, the EMP that opened up that whole team fight was almost back up again, and I knew that this would be our final chance. Unless I managed to cap the scut. Nope, never mind, that wall hacks. But that's okay, because my team finally respawned and we were ready to throw our bodies on the card one last time. While I was tempted to go in the flank once again, hearing my Zarya's call to fire at will gave me the confidence to charge up my ultimate then and there. Except double barrier meta is a thing, and then I got crowd controlled by Orisa because that's a really fun mechanic, and I eventually backed out, hacked the Lucio, and just settled for shooting Sigma's feet. While you could argue that aesthetics and in-game statistics are not related, I do like to believe that Sigma's lack of footwear hugely contributed to me getting the last few percentage points on my ultimate by doing extra damage. The EMP that followed this acquisition was nothing short of absolutely devastating. It wasn't enough that I violated Sigma's feet, I now also wiped the floor with the rest of his team. We were now on the home stretch, and I knew that I could not allow Hooded to set up in a sniper nest. An uncontested Widowmaker on this last point could make it extremely difficult for us to drive this baby home. Confirming once again that Pertinent and I had the same idea, he immediately pushed Hooded off of the high ground. Every single advantageous position has now been occupied by my team, and all we had to do was make the final incision. This last fight really showed just how anti-fun of a hero Sombra can be. Think you can wall right in front of me? Good joke, mate. Oh, you think you can get away from me while on low HP? Try again, loser. Attempting to use your hugely versatile toolkit in beneficial fashion as opposed to spamming it in fear of getting hacked? Get hacked anyway. I have successfully confiscated all the fun that was present in this lobby and drove it home with one final EMP that somehow did not hit the Lucio, but no matter because the game was won and I felt satisfied. I even managed to rein in on my own support's parade by stealing their play of the game. All in all, a very fruitful day for the fun police. The end. Hey wait, before you leave, I just want to say thanks for your guys' overwhelming support in light of this new format. If you enjoy watching it, I'll be sure to keep making it. So yeah, just wanted to say thanks. If you don't want to miss out on the next video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. While you're down there, don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video. Have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you guys next time.